In this video, I'm going to run through some of the areas where you may encounter problems with your DJ equipment and DJ software. And I'm also going to share my personal settings so you can make full use of your controller. So let's start with the DJ software. Okay, so you go up to this cog in the top right hand corner, and that's your settings, okay, and preferences. So let's start at view. So what we have here, first of all, the font size. Now, this isn't really going to be a problem, but seeing it we're there, I may as well talk you through it. So what happens is, that's just the font of the text. So look, if I take that down to small, you see that's what it's going to come at. That can be kind of hard to see. So I just might take that up a couple. And then I'd probably leave the rest as it is. I don't want to change too much unless I have to. But the one thing down here that you probably will want to change is the color of the waveform. See, I've got it on blue, but the reason I've got it on blue is because when playing in clubs, the waveforms are generally blue, and I'm preparing you for that. But if I was you, I'd probably select 3 band, as this looks really awesome. So you can change the color of the waveform there as it appears to you. But then I'd probably leave the rest, I'd go down. But the one other thing too, I'd put the key display format on alphanumeric. And what that's going to do is it's actually going to give you the numbers, like the Camelot system of mixing keys. So those numbers, I've got lots of videos on that in the course. So okay, have that there. Now I just go down. Okay, that's all fine. So let's now move to audio. Now with audio, okay, I wouldn't touch anything unless I have to. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're not able to get sound, then you go look at audio. Now, first of all, if you're not able to get sound, it could actually be something on the controller. So this is going to sound pretty obvious, but it's usually where people go wrong. To get sound, make sure your crossfader is in the middle. Take the volumes up for both ones. Have these all facing directly up. See, especially the trim, because the trim there at the top, that's also like another volume. And when you get the controller, that's going to be down. So just make sure that's up at midnight. All of these are facing straight up in the center. Make sure your master volume's on. Connect your speaker, okay? Make sure the speaker's turned up, or like turned on, and the volume's up a little bit on the back, okay? Then what you do is you see if you've got signal on here. So what I do is I go load up a track, put that into this side, and if I hit play, you see then make sure you've got signal. But let's say you can see the signal, but you can't hear sound. Well, then just make sure all those things are up that I just spoke about, and make sure your speaker's turned on. Now, if you're hearing signal, but you're still not hearing sound, then it may mean that you need to install the audio driver, especially for this unit. Now, that should be done automatically. Okay, I know when I connected it, it was just like bang, connect and play. But sometimes you might have to do the audio driver. So that's when I'd go in here to audio, and you just click that driver button, or just like, you just follow the prompts and get the driver for that software. But then sometimes I haven't been able to get that working either. And what it might mean is I'd go into my security preferences, okay? So just go up into, not record box, just your computer's like system preferences. And what you do, you go security and privacy. And what might happen is you might just have to click the lock to make changes. So you just unlock it, and then, you know, just put your password there. And what it's going to do is maybe your security preferences blocked it, okay? And just you have to, and then you'll go there and it'll say, oh, Rekordbox wants to access this to make changes, and you allow it. Okay, it's not going to make changes to your stuff, it's just going to make it work with this. So you just allow that. So I've experienced that a few times. Okay, so that's audio. That should be pretty cool. And by the way, if it's running through your computer and you're like, oh my God, I just want it through my speaker, up here in the top, that's your computer speaker. So if that's on, when I hit play, that's going to be coming through my speaker as well on here. But to be honest, I'd probably turn that off and just have it running through a speaker. Okay, so let's go back to the settings. Okay, so analysis mode, you definitely want track analysis mode in normal, okay? And that means when your Rekordbox automatically analyzes all your music, it's going to put a beat grid on the tracks, and it's going to stay that BPM for the whole track, okay? But what happens if you select dynamic, it's opening it up the door to flexible beat gridding, which I don't know why you'd do for, like, you know, but let's say you have it in dynamic, and you analyze your music like that, you could be playing a mid-track, your track playing is moving in BPM, okay? And you're like, what's going on, you know? So if your track, when you're playing, it's moving in BPM, just go into analysis, make sure you're on normal here, and you'll just have to reanalyze all your songs, okay? You don't want that on dynamic. I'd also make sure key selected, that's so we can actually see these numbers next to the, like, you know, next to the track names, and they're the keys, which is just going to help you to find songs that sound good together. Besides that, I'll leave the rest. Then you go to your controller. Now to see these controller settings, you'll have to actually have your controller connected to the gear while you set it, because it's going to read what kind of controller it is and make it relevant, the settings to the controller that you've got connected. So we go in here, and first of all, we're in deck, and you really want to make sure that the eject load lock is on unlock, okay? Because here's the thing. Let's say I put that on lock quickly, okay? I'll show you what that means. Say I've got this song playing here, and let's pretend I want to change and put another song on, okay? I'm like, maybe I'm just playing, messing around on my own, I just want to put another song on there. If I go to the next song and go to load it, it's coming up and saying load lock, not available during playback. So it means I've locked it. And the reason you might lock that is to prevent you from loading a track onto the song playing, okay? But here's the thing, let's just say I'm using this to practice and I'm messing around. I just want to be able to load songs quickly, and I don't want to have to stop the song. Let's say that's playing. I don't want to have to stop it to be able to load another song. I just want to be like, oh, okay, cool. Now let's try this one. And if I take load lock off, okay, what happens is I go unlock. Okay, I definitely have that on unlock. And then this is playing, and I go to load up another song. And then what happens is I just go to, okay, let's go find the song I want, load it, and then it loads straight away, and I don't have to stop it each time, which makes my workflow a little bit more efficient. I find a bit quicker. Like, I find that having to stop it every time just to be able to load a track a little bit annoying. Okay, the needle lock, I'd probably take that off unlock too, but needle lock isn't relevant to this controller because this doesn't actually have needle search pads. So on some of the record boxes, some gear in general, there might actually be needle search, like this little pad kind of thing that runs along, and you can actually jump to certain places in the track by, kind of like a record, like a needle on a record, just jumping to certain places. And you can select, like say I hit at the end of the pad, it's going to the end of the song, that would be to the middle of the song, but it's not on here, okay? But if you did have a controller that has needle lock, definitely, man, take advantage of it. It's really cool. I'll just leave that. One thing here quickly with the vinyl speed adjust, okay? At the moment, if this is playing and I hit pause, it's actually just gonna stop. If you wanna add like a little, right, what I could do is, well, we've only got the 2 decks, so it's like 1 and 2 here, so we'll just take that to maybe about there, and this one about there as well, and have a listen to what happens when I hit pause. You get that. If you want to make it longer, take it right up. You know what I mean? I reckon that is probably quite good. So what I might do is just have that about there, and that means sometimes when you're exiting a song, you could even be like, you know what I mean? It's like, if you want to, like, again, it's you could take it a little bit more if you want. You know what I mean? I reckon a little bit shorter. I think I like it about there. Yeah, cool. Okay, moving down. I think I'd leave the rest as it is. Besides, this is probably the most important one of all. I would definitely tick the hot cue during pause, gate playback is applied. And what I won't tick it at the moment, I want to show you what it does. But let's say I'll just go put a hot cue on something. So let's go, I'll just put a hot cue. Don't worry, it's just random at the moment. But let's say now, okay, I hit that. That's going to start playing. And that means the hot cues operate kind of like play buttons, okay? But what I want to do is, if I want to hit play, like sometimes I want to go to the point and then just have it stop there and then use play. I like using play buttons better. It's going to get you more ready to play in clubs too. So if I go in here and actually go down and click that during pause, gate back is applied, then what happens is when I hit this, it's not playing. And that's actually going to be cool. Like, check out the video in the hot cue performance section where I'm kind of using it like that to kind of like do like, and that means I can hold it. It's holding it, but I can kind of like, and do cool stuff with it. But that means, say I like it and you do want to play it, then you can hit play. And then in play, then I can jump around the song, do whatever I want. But it's in pause, the stop's going to be, so say I load the song, it's in like, stopped, it's not going to start playing. And I can kind of go to the parts, and in that way kind of use them like memory cues, go to the part I want to play, hit play, and it also opens up kind of some cool stuff coming up in the hot cue section. So, okay, so I'd have that on. Moving across, you know what? I'd probably, one more thing quickly, the backspin length. Okay, even though I like doing them manually, but if I put that on long, it's probably going to make my backspin a little, see, a bit longer than, say if I went short, let's go here, okay? It's shorter. I like having long ones. So let's go long backspin. Yeah, it just draws it out a little bit, add a bit of echo to that. We're laughing. Okay, cool, let's go to mixer. okay, I'd be leaving this, but people do ask about this EQ mode. Like, do you have it in EQ or do you have it in isolator? Now, EQ, I reckon, is probably a little bit more forgiving, and I'm probably using it in EQ mode the majority of the time. But isolator, it just makes the EQ a little bit more sensitive and a little bit more powerful in some ways, but it's not as forgiving. And what I mean by that is, okay, let's say at the moment I take all these out and I hit play. You can't hear anything because this is full cut. It's like full isolator mode. And then this is just your bass. This would just be the mid frequencies. This would just be the high frequencies. So isolator mode is really good for isolating frequencies. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're playing techno. Okay, I'd probably use isolator mode in techno the most. If you're doing tech house and other stuff, I'd probably just leave it in EQ. I want a bit of the sound spilling over, and I think you get a bit more, it's a bit more, like I said, it's a bit more forgiving just in EQ mode, and I like that. But if I'm playing techno, and let's say my exiting song drops off into a melody, and I'm like, I've got my new song coming in, I'm like, oh, I love that melody. I want to put that melody on that track. Well, what I could do is, I could sometimes say this is the song with the melody and I've got that down, this is my new song. I could just have that melody going, you know, and just control that there, and you really isolate the frequencies. But then again, I think sometimes it does take a little bit of the warmth away from the sound. It's a little bit more aggressive. So you can experiment with it, but if it was me, I would probably just have that setting on EQ. Okay, it's a little bit warmer in the sound, I find, and not so aggressive. Okay, definitely leave that as it is. I'd just leave the rest. Like, you don't want to mess with too much. They probably use the standard settings, but there's just some that you want to adjust. I'd leave the effects, I'd leave the sampler, the recordings, that's just where it's going to save your recording. So if you've got a problem like with space on your computer, you might want to set that up to like an external hard drive or something like that, but or even your desktop. But at the moment, when I record, it's just going to go into a recording folder, and it'll be in your, like, as soon as you hit like record and you save it, it's going to come up in a little folder here. So I've got more on that in the recording section. And then others, okay, this is one thing that I might do. So what happens is, okay, quantise. What that does is it snaps it to the beat. So let's say I'm looping. I definitely want quantise on. Let me give you an example of that. So let's say I'm looping here and I set the loop, right? Okay, and let's say I don't quite hit on the beat, it will still snap the loop to the grid. And that's what quantise does. It snaps like whatever you're doing to the beat, which is great for looping. 100% I want that. But I don't want quantise on when I'm doing my hot cue work. So let's say I've got hot cues here. I'll just set a couple, right? So I'll exit that loop. Okay, see how I hit that? I'm going fast. But because quantise is on, it's only moving to the beat, like snap it to the beat. So what happens is, I might just go in here and then disable hot cue, like the quantise for hot cue. So that means, you know, I can actually, now sure it won't snap it to the beat, you might have to beat match a little bit, but then again, I really like disabling, I like having full functionality here. But then again, say you want to snap it to the beat, you could go enable and you just go make the interval a lot shorter. So it's like, you still get a fair bit of sensitivity there and it still might snap to the beat. So that's kind of a compromise, I guess. Okay, now the rest, I'll be honest, I'd leave the rest. I can't think why I'd change it, to be honest. Yeah, and that's only relevant there. You don't need any of that. So, okay, so that's the software settings, but let's just have a look at the gear where some things could go wrong. So I think the big thing, well, first of all, if you're not getting volume, as I mentioned before, making sure that this is in the middle, they're all straight up, you've got volume, your speaker connected. But where people go wrong is probably with your tempo faders, okay? And let's say they're on here and maybe they can't get it to move even, okay? Just make sure sync's turned off, okay? And then you might just have to just kind of like reset it, okay? But then another thing is, let's say you've got no sensitivity on your tempo fader. Well, you just go in here and see under the BPM there, I've got like plus or minus 10. That means I can move the tempo fader pretty much like plus or minus 10 from its original speed. 16 means I move about 16 either side, but wide mode's where you lose all your sensitivity and you lose all control on your crossfader, which is great when we're trying to sync and do big BPM jumps, which I've got a video about that. And that's actually cool. I definitely have it in wide mode and I'll talk more about it then. But if you're just mixing like tech house and doing house, you're going to lose sensitivity. It's going to be very hard to get in like 121 point whatever. So what happens is I'd probably just take it to plus or minus 6 or plus or minus 10. But one more thing quickly, let's say you're moving this, and let's say when you move it, it's going kind of chipmunks. You're like, oh, what's going on? Well, just make sure the master tempo button's on, and what that is it's a key lock, which means you can move the actual original speed of the song without affecting the sound of the song. So that was in my equipment walkthrough, but I definitely have that master tempo button on the whole time. Okay, besides that, I think it's all straightforward. Oh, one last thing quickly though. I remember once I went to connect my headphones and it made this screeching sound, and I just didn't know what to do, and I was really looking at the settings. I couldn't figure out what was wrong. And so I just unplugged it from the computer, and it's like, I guess that's essentially turning it on and off. And then it came back and it was fine. So if you ever have any issues with anything electronically, like it's just acting strangely and weird, I would say the good old turn on and off trick. Now, I don't know, because this is fairly new. So I don't know, it's just some little glitch probably. So yeah, so turn on and off if you've got a serious problem. Now, I feel I did my best there to answer most of the issues people have with gear and software, but if you have any other problems, perhaps post it in the tribe group to see if anyone else has had like similar issues. It's a good way to connect with other people and get to know people. And you can also contact me as well personally, so I'm always here to help. Okay, thanks. So what did you think? Was it way too easy? Well, anyway, trust me, you ain't seen nothing yet. So if you resonate with the way I teach and you feel you'd benefit from a more organized approach, I've decided to run a quick sale on my latest Controller to Club course. So check out the link in the description below, as this is a huge opportunity for you to transform the way you play and the way you DJ and build confidence to play live in a really quick period of time. So it's actually the biggest sale I've ever done for this course. So anyway, check it out in the description. Anyway, thanks again for tuning in. Remember to share some love around this week. Thanks, man.